All right, well, let's
Sure,
call,
fine.
yeah, let's
go ahead.
call the meeting to order here then, and then, approval of the minutes. Since there's three of us, if we want to take turns kind of reviewing and signing off on that, any question or discussion on the minutes?
No, I'll make the motion to approve the minutes.
Okay, is there a second? Thank you, Michelle. Awesome. And Stacy, keep me honest here if I'm doing things that are sort of out of order. Yeah, so let's jump right into the finance report. Who is taking that?
Oh, hey, sorry guys, we were just a second we had some technology issues here this morning. Yeah, so Colin has got our finance reports for February through April. Yes.
Okay, yeah, awesome. Colin, I thought you were on vacation or on paternity leave, so thanks.
I've been working remote a little bit more, but I've been coming in too to keep things from getting behind. So
Yeah, well, first, congratulations on the new baby. That's most important, but thank you.
Yep, she was born on the 8th, so we're on day 17 right now. So we're keep us in your thoughts. We've got February, March, and April reports together here. So I don't know, you want me to run through our percentages, or if you want to just kind of take a quick look at them?
Yeah, I took a quick look at them. I mean, I appreciate the graph. I think it's a lot easier to look at. I will admit my first reaction was, come on, man, why don't we have the last month's reports? And I remembered it was still May. So thank you for getting April in there. So yeah, that's good. Do we want to, like, Michelle, what do you typically do here? Do you go right to April and kind of look at the most recent month because that's aggregated to where we are, or what makes sense?
I mean, I think that makes the most sense. I think we have spent a little bit of time. Usually when we were doing 2 months, we would quickly do the first month and then jump to the last.
Yeah.
But when you have 3, I'm not sure it makes a lot of sense to talk about February. Unless somebody has a question.
The only real thing that I have just to note about February is that was the last month that had a greater amount of expenses to where we're at now. Like, we've drastically reduced from in March and then even further in April. But you can see that our total expenses went up about almost 8% month over month from January to February, but then we're going up like less than 4%. And then for this month, I think it was 2% going from March to April. So that you just see in our decline in expenditures really start to take it after February.
That makes sense.
So in April, we were at 84% expended on the approved budget for the year, on the total overall budget. And then our admin was at 92% expended. Adult was fully expended at 100%. Dislocated worker was at 41%. And again, that's being transferred fully over to adult mostly. There's very little dislocated worker being charged a dislocated worker right now. And then our youth was expended at 103%. And that's above because we received that $365,000 NFA, and I believe it was early March that we've been using that as well. And on top of that, most of our admin costs have been charged to youth for the last month and a half or so. So, and that 103% represents, this is the amount budgeted for the year, and we've got more funds than what was allocated for the versus what our budget said. So that's why it's a little bit over 100%. And then at our work experience, we have completely covered our work experience requirement for the year. So as you can see, we're slowing down to a crawl on our expenditures and after meeting with the Equus Group, it sounds like they're gonna be able to keep their expenditures as low as it was in April for the next couple of months. So that should leave us in a good spot to save a little bit of money for going into the next fiscal year.
Yeah, that was gonna be my ask. I mean, any question or concern about what we look for or we're looking at for the remaining quarter of the fiscal year?
No, sir. No, we will be good to finish out May and June. We've got the funds, especially since we got the additional youth funds and also the recapture funds to assist with that last rest care payment. That's already been the interface of hit for that. So we're actually in a really good spot moving forward to finish out this fiscal year.
Yeah, great.
Do we have a dislocated to adult transfer in motion now?
Those should, I mean, I think we've already
They've
transferred it
all
all.
they've all gone through. Yeah, they're all transferred to adult right now.
So it should be reflected on the May report.
Yeah.
Whenever.
So, yeah, right now, it's just the stuff that Michael had to request to have reallocated to make room for that additional, the recaptured funds that came in. We're just waiting for that to get finalized. It got the programmatic approval, I think, yesterday. So it usually takes one more day for fiscal approval. So we should get, I think it's like 1.7 million should be coming down so that we can pay the stuff that we owe Equus. And plus, that's through February.
So that'll make us whole with Equus. Are we gonna share some of the admin expenses around to the other grants? Or are we sticking with youth?
So to finish this year out, we'll probably stay with some of that to the youth. We can always go back in JV and some of that background if we need to. But we're in pretty good shape right now. When we got those recaptured funds, that was a game changer for us.
Okay.
So.
Okay. As far as Equus goes, so with the recaptured funds and the moving from dislocated to adult to pay them, are we going to be made whole with them? Are their books matching ours? Are we sitting down to make sure, we're all on the same page going forward? Because we don't want to run into this again, I'm sure.
Yes, we will, once the 1.7 comes down, we'll get that paid. And then like I said, we got to go do the reallocation to book back the 390, whatever, 392,000. So we'll be paid in full with Equus very soon. We've already got one disbursement of like 700 and some odd thousand. And then like I said, we've got this 1.7 million that's coming down first next week. And that's some of that's our admin, but a lot of that's Equus money. And then we'll just have, I believe, March and April that we've got to submit.
Okay. I just want to make sure. I mean, this all stemmed from a non-reconciliation on the front end. So I just want to make sure now that we're fixing everything and slowing down spending that we all sit down and our books look the same so that we can go forward clean. Okay.
So as of right now, what's in the work system matches what is in SIMA.
Oh, wow. That hasn't happened in years, probably.
Huh?
I said, oh, wow. That's probably hasn't happened in years.
I don't think it's ever happened, to be completely honest. But yeah, right now, everything in SIMA matches, everything in Works matches, everything in column spreadsheet. So right now, everything matches.
Okay. So then the
So
last
that's
step
why
is
we're
making
flying
sure.
through. Yeah, we're
Okay.
flying through monitoring right now because everything matches up.
Okay, that's good. Last step is just make sure Equus matches so that we're all talking the same language when we sit down.
Yeah.
Got it. All right. Sorry, Matt.
No, no, it's good. And it's good that we all feel comfortable with everything matching up here, right? So, no, good.
Yeah, that's where we want to stay, Matt.
Yeah. All right. Any questions about February, March, or April budgets?
I have none and move to approve.
Okay. Sorry, I keep flipping back and forth between that screen or not. Michelle, do you second that?
Sure, I'll second.
Thank you. All right, so let's move to the next topic. Need to So that's the budget for 24 preliminary numbers.
Yes, so we did get preliminary planning numbers from the cabinet. We did get about it's about a 9.5%, 10% decrease this year in WIOA funds. So our total allocation for our planning numbers is about 3.2 million.
Was that decrease due to making up for the money from this fiscal year, or just a decrease overall for everybody in terms of
Just
what?
an overall decrease for everybody.
Okay,
So with that said, we have to take out the 392,000 because that recaptured funds from other areas to help us get right with Equus, we have to pay back. It's not just like they recaptured and gave us a Christmas present and said, here you go. Here's a bunch of money. So we do have to pay that back to those areas that will come out of our FY24 money. So for example, when we get our first draw in July, nothing will come out of that. However, when we get the program year draws that come in October, for example, our planning numbers for FY24 adult is 553,939, but we will have a $342,974 repayment that comes out of that. So our actual adjusted award for adult is only 210,000. Same thing with dislocated worker. Dislocated worker should be about 1.29. It's going to be about 1.24 to take out 50,000 to get us whole on that. So our actual operating budget for FY24 is more in the ballpark of 2.836 million after we take out the repayment amount. And if you'd like, I kind of have I've started some rough numbers on that to kind of give you an idea of where we're going to be, and just to propose maybe some ideas to move forward to see what you all think about it, if that's okay.
yeah.
Okay, so out of that 2.836 million, we have to go on the assumption that we're going to have very little to no rollover. Usually every year when we're budgeting, you're budgeting on what you get plus about half of what you had from the year before for that rollover. Because the way things went down, we weren't initially anticipating much of a rollover at all. Right now, I definitely know that we're going to finish in the positive. It's just a matter of how much in the positive. So what I would like to propose is that when we look for this budget for the next year, we simply base it off what we know our awards want to be. And any rollover funds that we have, we kind of consider that rainy day money that we're going to bank towards next year to have some rollover. Additionally, what I'd like to propose is that we carve out 200,000 of this year's award as money that we're going to hold back for rollover amount for next year. So that way, when we get to next April, May, and June, more budget forecasting, we know that we're not starting at ground zero again with scrambling to find operating funds. So what I'd like to propose is that out of that 2.8 million, we hold back 200,000 to have for operating funds to get started next year. So that leaves us with an operating budget this year of about 2.6 million. I've been working with Michael to get some exact figures as far as what we've got to have for salaries, personnel, rent, utilities, because we do have to pay for operating expenses for all 4 Kentucky Career Center locations, rent and utilities. Also, to look at expenses for, like, for example, the transfer VR equipment. There's a $25,000 a year cost associated with that equipment, but also conferences and travel, office supplies, which would include like copier maintenance, copier rental fee, licensing fee for software for, like, for example, the Adobe package that Stacy has to have to make sure that all of our stuff is done correctly, to make sure that we have the software so that we can do the videos, the video editing software that Stacy utilizes for what we put out on the Facebook and our social media. And also to set aside for that, with all of that being said, my hope is to get that concrete with Michael here pretty soon, as soon as he gets back, so that we can then give Jennifer a kind of a more firm budget. Right now, that's looking where that's going to be somewhere between about 1.2 and 1.4 million, which admittedly isn't a lot. We know that. We know this year is going to be a little different. We know this year is going to be, if you're a Dave Ramsey person, it's rice and beans, beans and rice. But that's okay. Dave Ramsey also says sometimes you have to live like no one else so that you can live like no one else. This year, we're going to have to be very cognizant of the cash. We're going to be very cognizant of where we spend the money. And we're aware of that, and we're going to have to get creative. We're going to get outside the box, do some things differently, maybe do some old school grassroots, getting out there and doing outreach, and reaching participants with more of our free services versus funded services. But what we hope to be able to do is go through a lean year this year. Finish this year up where we know we're going to start with at least 200,000 in reserve funds for a rollover, plus anything else that we've been able to manage to save through just some very judicious spending over the course of the year, so that when we start to look at FY25, we do have a rollover amount that we can add to our WIOA funds, so that we're not starting the year off with no money to serve people.
I think that's fair. When you're ticking through the must pays, are we including our contractual obligations to Equus as far as their incentives and things like that? Because we have to make sure we have that tucked away too, or else we'll be in breach of contract.
Yes, that will be part of what we have to go towards rest care. So that will also cut into what we've got for programs. And we're, right now, I think by the time we build in like the profit that has to go in there, the incentives that go in with their performance, we're probably looking somewhere in a ballpark of about 600,000 that we'll have available for services. By the time we pay all of ours, we pay staff salaries, we pay our contractual obligations for like I said, the copier rental, that kind of stuff that we have to have. And then when you figure in the rest care, so also I've met with Jennifer about staffing. Last year, I believe we had 24 direct service staff on contract. This year, I kind of told Jennifer that number is going to be capped at 9. We'll have 1 TDS in all 4 of the career centers. We'll have 1 business service staff. We'll have a one-stop operator in Todd Blanton. Kevin Moore will be doing quality assurance. And then we have Kathy Joe, who is the Equus accountant, who bills a portion of her time. So the 4 TDSs, the 1 business service is the 5, then you're kind of your 3 administrative team with Kevin, Jennifer, and Todd, that puts you up to 8, and then Kathy Joe is that 9th position.
That makes sense.
Well, that gives us coverage. We have 1 TDS at all 4 career centers. I believe I've met with Rowley and talked with Rowley about it, and bringing on 1 business service staff for the limited number of participants that we're going to have. And Ethan, you did business services here. 1 person plus Rowley we think can knock out the 17 counties. Because we're possibly looking at Hannah Phillips coming back in that business
With
services
the funding limitations, we can only fund so many work experiences and OJTs anyway, so there's no need for a full staff. Yeah, I got you.
That's it. And we're looking at potentially, we might be able to serve 60 to 80 people total. So 1 business service staff can easily cover the industry obligations for that many people.
Right. Okay. That's all I had. Sorry.
Is there any, it feels like we don't get a lot of advance notice of these things, but are there any grants that we're going to accelerate going after to this year to kind of try to help?
So, yeah, we definitely want to look at additional funding sources. So we've already been approached by one of our partners, the Shepherd's House. They're applying for a SAMHSA grant, that if they get that funds, it'll kind of be like the current grant with Isaiah House, where they give us the funds to utilize to serve their participants. So that'll help definitely. If that comes through. The other thing that we need to be fairly aware of, and there's a lot of grants we can go after, but it's also not always the best thing to go after every pot of money we have, because we really need to be, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, we need to be very cognizant of building the infrastructure that we have to accommodate that load. So full disclosure, my background was in financial management. I was a grants manager with the state for 15 years. When I first got to the Department of Juvenile Justice, we had several grants that we were awarded that we had to give back, because while we got the money, we didn't have the infrastructure to implement it. And that's something you have to be very aware of. More money doesn't always equal more success, because you have to have the staff, you have to have the infrastructure. It's like I tell people all the time, we can get all these grants, but we don't necessarily have the fiscal staff to do all the accounting and the tracking to make sure that it's adequately being done. We have Colin, and we don't want to run Colin off. We really like Colin. But we need to be careful that as we bring on grants, that we have the staff to implement those grants, because a lot of grants you get are just for services. They're not for staffing. So if we get all kinds of program money, we're going to kill our staff, because we're going to pile more and more and more. And that's kind of what we did last year. Last year we were kind of victim of our own success. I don't think anybody will disagree that even if money hadn't been an issue last year, we had too much going on at times. And it's because everything we tried to do worked. I mean, we were really successful. It's a 100% a compliment to our direct service staff, to our board support staff, to the programs that Amy put in place. Everything was successful. You know, sometimes you just throw something out there to see if it works. And half the time it does, half the time it doesn't. Everything we tried last year, it took off. Like, oh, let's try this with one recovery center. Boom, now there's 10 lined up at the door. Or, oh, let's try this with this employer. Boom, there's 8 employers that want to take off. My only words is this year, we need to just build back slowly. So if we do go after grants, we want to make sure that it's a grant that also has the capability to provide infrastructure. So in terms of staffing, that grant can not only provide program dollars, but it can provide money to hire staff.
All right.
And there are some we're looking at.
So any questions on the budget for fiscal year 24?
And I'll have you exact numbers. What we can do is, if you all would like, I was hoping to have those today, but we just got our insurance numbers a couple of days ago. So we're going to have a small insurance increase here. I was able to negotiate with our insurance broker to get us down from 16% to about 9% now. So that's been really good. The CERS rates are going down, which is their employee retirement. That's going down from 26.79 to 23.34. So we'll see a little bit of a cost savings there. So Michael and I are still working to get the main agency budget numbers plugged in. We can have that ready to present a working budget at the June, the full board meeting. If you all would be interested, if you wanted to have a quick call before that meeting to look at a budget before we get that meeting, I'm fine with that if you all are, or we can just do it all together at the June meeting.
I think we typically have it run through finance before we go to the board, don't we?
Okay. So would it be okay with you all, as soon as we get those numbers, I just get Robin to send out a real quick meeting invite and we'll do a quick Zoom just to kind of, just with the sole purpose of just going over those numbers to make sure it's numbers you all are comfortable with and that you feel good with.
Yeah, I think that's good because our
Okay.
meeting is a little less than 2 weeks from today.
Yep.
The June 7th, I was just looking. Yeah.
Yeah,
That'd be good.
Third, it might be that quick of a turnaround, but I can definitely get you all the budget numbers before that meeting. Absolutely. Because there's just a couple of things I've got to get squared away so that I can give Jennifer kind of what her operating budget will look like for the year.
Yeah. No, I think we're definitely in a mode of let's feel really good about the numbers and then we'll review them. So yeah, that feels good. Get that right.
And staffing wise, right now we've got, and Tiff, correct me if I'm wrong, but right now we have 3 of the TDSs in place. We have Allie in Richmond, we have Crystal in Lexington, and we have what's her name? Casey in Georgetown. So after July 1st, we can look at bringing on that 4th TDS to cover the Danville office, and then a business service person once we get, because once we get the initial funding in July, so we can make sure we can make payroll, because we don't want to bring on people before we have money to pay for them. That will have us fully staffed on that side. So then really the only thing you'll have left is a director position to look at. And like I said, right now, my recommendation is just that, I can do this as long as my salary doesn't come at all from workforce. Right now, my salary is 100% from the ad. So that helps us save a considerable bit of money every month, as long as we can float that.
Yeah, I don't think that we would want to, I mean, definitely let's wait until we get into next fiscal year before we do anything for that. But no, I mean, I don't think we're in a hurry there.
Okay. So yeah, as soon as Michael and I and Colin get the numbers together for a working budget for next year, I'll get Robin to send us a notice and we can do a special call finance meeting.
Okay.
That works.
Yeah, I mean, when would you think I can suggest some times, just calendar wise?
So part of the problem is Michael will be out all next week. So it's probably going to be, so our meeting is on June 7th, which is what, a Thursday?
It's a
or
Wednesday. Yeah.
Wednesday.
So we might be looking at like Monday the 5th or Tuesday the 6th. It might be that close. Unless Michael and I can get things hammered out tomorrow. At which point we can do it next week while he's gone.
Why don't we just tentatively put on the calendar, like, I'm just throwing this out there. Michelle, Ethan, what do you guys look, how do you guys look for like the 6th? Then we'll just get that locked in and we can maybe do it sooner if it's available.
Okay.
I'm open the afternoon of the 6th and all day on the 5th.
I'm good after about 11 o'clock on the 6th, then all day on the 5th.
Yeah, the 5th, well, but both days I've got some different holes. What about 3 o'clock on Tuesday, the 6th?
Perfect.
That's fine.
Got it.
Yeah, let.
Well, somebody sent out a calendar invite, so I'll actually hold that.
Same.
So just at 2 o'clock, Matt?
3 o'clock.
Okay.
15.
I think we're in the same time zone. So yeah,
Okay.
3 o'clock.
Yeah, we can absolutely do that.
Awesome.
In that way, Mike will be on if we do have additional questions, and then
Yes.
he'll have some time. Yeah.
Yeah, and like I said, definitely by the 6th, I'll be able to have exactly what we're gonna need for the year. So I can let Jennifer know, and like Jennifer already knows a ballpark, so that she's kind of already working backwards into that.
Right.
You know, I've talked with staff and we know that, you know, we're probably looking at serving 60 to 80 participants in fully funded services. And we know that's a huge discrepancy from what we've done. But we've also got a lot of other things working, you know, like we've already, I think from January till now, we've had 276 unique people do the VR presentations, and we've done over 475 simulations. That number is only going to increase. You know, I was at the full board executive meeting last night for the ad board, and the judges were just going on and on about the VR technology and the presentations. I talked with the judge from Harrison County, and he was just talking about how great it was and how they want to get it back already. We've also got a lot of partnerships. We're going into like libraries. We're going into Madison County. We're actually, after this meeting, Jeremy and Early and myself are going to the Isaiah House in Mercer County to do a presentation with their executive staff. I've got a presentation lined up with Education and Workforce Development Cabinet staff to look at the VR technology. So we're going to be reaching people. We're going to be doing a lot more direct referrals. You know, it may not be putting people in work-based learning or WEXs. It might just be doing direct hires, working with employers to get people directly from, you know, unemployment to actual paid positions.
Yeah.
But we're still going to get that done.
All right.
We just got to get creative.
Stacy, do we need any review or approval of that? We didn't break this agenda into informational versus action, so we're good.
No, when you have your follow-up meeting, you can make any recommendations, but as far as approvals and stuff, that's not necessary.
Okay. Thank you. All right, did that include the status of the WIO funds budget topic? Are we good there, or did you have more to add?
No, I was just saying, I've talked with Michael several times,
Yeah.
checked with Colin. We're good to finish out this year. And like I said, what I'm going to recommend is whatever amount we have left over, we don't really consider it rollover. We just consider it money that we're going to push towards the following year when we get healthy again.
Okay.
Makes sense.
Fall SETA conference?
So because funds are limited, I know normally we usually send quite a bit of staff to the SETA conference. What I would kind of like to propose this year, we've put in for a presentation at SETA. I believe it's Tiffany and Stacy presenting on, we have taken our access program, which, you know, you're probably all familiar with. It's all right, Tiff, go ahead and tell me what access stands for again, because I'll mess it up. I always do.
Stacy, because I'm drawing a blank right now, because Stacy's the one that's created it all to make it all digital. It's awesome.
You're muted, Stace.
Yeah, you're on mute.
I thought I hit the button and I didn't, sorry. The Academy for Continuing Careers, Employment and Soft Skills. And it takes you through finding the job, getting the job, and keeping the job, as far as identifying transferable skills, all the way through to how to communicate with people in the office, and even arriving on time, things like that. So we're taking all of that and we're turning it into online videos that have follow-up testing, where they can take the stuff that they've learned and actually present it to their TDS in order to do things like build a resume and find employment in a career that they're interested in. This used to be a sit down class, or a TDS may work individually with people. Now people can go online and start the process by themselves and take that information to the TDS after they've completed it.
So it's really cool. I know we were doing access training when Ethan was still here, because I think Ethan's favorite part was he did how to keep the job. So if I'm not mistaken, Ethan, you're the one that came up with part of how to keep the job was not be the guy who brings the stinky tuna fish sandwich to work.
That's
and heats
exactly
it up in
right.
the microwave.
Yeah,
I believe
the high
that was your
school kids love
analogy.
that.
You know,
So-
that's great. I actually had to have a manager to employee discussion with someone about the fish that they were bringing in and eating in their open cubicle. So that one's near and dear.
Yeah,
That's
So
the story I
we
used to
think
tell when I
about
thought
that.
that worked out.
and we've done the access training in a lot of recovery centers, a lot of high schools, a lot of employers, and it's great. But one of the things that COVID forced us to do was look into a digital world. So Stacy has created, basically the access is now digitized. She's done all the voiceover for it. It's got modules. And we think it's going to change the game on the delivery of service for access, to the point that, you know, I've had the privilege to present at different conferences on what we do in the Bluegrass, and I've worked with 4 different workforce areas in the last 6 to 9 months on our practices, and pretty much all of them want to know more about our access training. When I've gone to national conferences and presented, I presented at NOB 2 years ago. I presented at SETA. When I talk about access, other states are like, how can we access this? So this is a way that we're hoping to take that another step forward. And it's just, again, it's just a great thing that staff here have done. So we're going to probably present that at the SETA conference in the fall, getting back to where we started from. So what we would probably like to budget for is to be able to send 2 staff to the fall SETA, hopefully that it's 2 people presenting. I know that SETA is in the process right now of determining who will be chosen for speakers for September. Early indicators are that we have a pretty strong chance of our presentation getting pulled to be one of the feature presentations during the conference. So we would definitely need to be able to budget to send Stacy and Tiffany to the SETA conference this fall. Plus, if we want to set aside funds for any of the board members to go as well. I think historically, at least 1 or 2 of the board members have gone to SETA. And I thought what we may try to do is send 2 staff in the spring as well. Just so that we can have a presence at the conferences.
What's the price tag on that?
It's going to end up being I hate to ballpark things, but you're looking at about $2,000 by the time you pay for hotels and airfare and meals. Because this year's fall conference is in Orange Beach. So, you know, you figure in probably, I think SETA's getting ready to raise their prices to about $665, $675 for registration. Then you tack on another probably $600 or $700 at least for hotel. Then you tack on another $500 for airline. And then when you get your per diems in there, it's going to hit about $2,000 a person.
And we have no budgetary issues with affording it?
I mean, it's going to cost. But it's
Well,
kind of
yeah,
necessary cost of doing business. That's why we're trying to, like, you know, in the past, for example, we've sent 6 or 7 in the spring and 6 or 7 in the fall. That's why we're looking this year, maybe doing like
Just
2 staff that are presenting. Because we'll also, when they have the SETA in the spring, we'll put in to present there as well. Because we want to keep the activities that the Bluegrass Workforce Development Area is doing at the forefront in SETA. Because we feel like we are doing some things that could be replicated across the South. And we want to keep our name out there.
Is registration waived at all if they accept us as a presenter?
No longer. SETA used to waive your partial registration. So like the last time I presented at SETA, I only had to pay like a partial registration fee. 1 year they waived my registration fee. Now they're going to, like a lot of other conferences, if you present, you don't get anything free, pretty much.
I got you. Okay.
And a lot of NOB's doing that now as well. They're not waiving anything for presenters.
Okay. In the grand scheme of things, I don't think it's a big issue to send 1 or 2. So, I mean, I'm fine with that if Matt and Michelle are.
I mean, I always think it's good to stay with your finger on the pulse of what's going on. And I mean, I do think that the marketing of what this workforce does is good and tremendous, but I mean, I think the knowledge that you're gaining from just, what are other people doing and how does that compare and do they have any other ideas is good as well. So no, I fully support conference attendance. I would say you may be slightly underestimating the cost of airfare right now and
What I
Orange
was
Beach,
thinking.
but so you may need to budget a little bit more for that, but no, I do support it.
Well, I think originally I had kind of ballparked about 25,000 for the year, to do, because we've also got some local conferences. So for example, there's a recovery event that's like $35 a person that we're all going to go to, but it's here in Lexington. Because we still want to make sure we're doing national things, but we want to make sure that, regionally and statewide, that we still keep our name out there. Because again, even though there are some financial constraints, our programs are still cutting edge. We're still doing things that other areas aren't. And if you ever get on any of the chamber calls, even the workforce calls, they reference what Bluegrass is doing a lot.
And I don't want to put us in any sort of weird financial gymnastic situation, but if somebody does like the Access program and we've invested all this time in building the video and the voiceover, and I say we like I did something, but we, right, is we do that. If somebody wants to, another group wants to help contribute to that, or I don't know how that works, if that's possible. Like, we don't need to charge licenses, I'm not sure. But if there was something to say like, hey, if you want to help us support our efforts to continue to build content, would love, a little bit of love tossed our way. That may be something else that can kind of help.
Yeah, and I don't know how that
The only
counted
downside is
as
it was
intellectual
done with
property
federal
of the ad, or?
Yeah, well, the problem is with anything that's created with federal funds, and it might be proprietary for us, but it was still created with federal funds, therefore, it's kind of like free market. If it's done with federal funds, another federal agency can easily access that and ask us, basically, give us your secret sauce, and we kind of have to, because even though
Yeah, it's not a license fee. I'm just suggesting that if there is something to say like, hey, we'll work on this, and if there's like, if they need an extension of something or something else, right? And
Yes.
they don't have a Stacy or somebody of Stacy's caliber. If they're like, hey, if we've got some extra funds here, that would be something would be good to be able to accept.
Yes, and I've started some discussions with some folks, with some of the new initiatives that are going out with the state. And there is some possibilities of us getting to help roll some of that out and getting some funding to help support that. So that's some of the angles that I'm currently trying to work, is like to figure out how can we get compensated for what we're doing. Other means other than we owe it, to kind of diversify that funding base.
Yeah. I don't know what it's called, if it's a side hustle internal to what you're doing, but yeah.
It's a side hustle.
Awesome.
All right, do we need
It's
a
not
motion
flat
on
driving
that?
for Uber. We're just
Yeah.
DoorDash our workforce.
There we go. Do we, Ethan was just asking, do we need an approval for that? I don't know if we need an approval for that or we approve it as part of an overall budget, but
It'll be the overall budget.
yeah.
So we'll hit it when we hit the 24 budget.
Yes, it'll be included. I just wanted to make sure you all were comfortable with me scheduling and budgeting in at least a couple of staff going to each one of them, as well as a couple of board members. That way we've got that presence. I just want to make sure before I built that into the budget that you all were comfortable with it.
No, I'm fine with it.
I am good.
All right.
All right. Any other discussion? That doesn't involve super cute chihuahuas? All
Yeah,
right.
I think we're in pretty good shape. I'll get the budget numbers to you as soon as possible. We'll get that meeting rescheduled. The decrease in the employee retirement contribution helped tremendously.
Yes.
It helped tremendously.
Yeah, no, that's great. All right. Well, thank you guys for all the work. I know it's a ton of work to get all this put together for us, so thank you for that. And but do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All right, we are adjourned. Thanks, everybody.